The lecture hall on station Kepler 442 hummed with the quiet anticipation of 200 cadets from across the galactic coalition. Instructor Veltar, a towering Corinthian with crystalline skin that refracted the overhead lights into prismatic patterns, stood before a holographic display, showcasing what appeared to be an ancient suit of armor. "This," Velthar announced, his voice reverberating through his chest cavity in the characteristic bass rumble of his species, "is perhaps the most significant archaeological discovery of the last millennium. Precursor combat armor, recovered intact from the ruins of Theta Prime." The cadets leaned forward, mandibles clicking, tendrils twitching, and various appendages gesturing in species-specific expressions of interest. Among them sat Susan Chen and Evan Rodriguez, the only two humans in advanced xenoarchaeology, 401. Evan scribbled notes on his datapad, while Susan studied the hologram with narrowed eyes, her arms crossed over her chest. "The precursors," Velthar continued, manipulating the display to rotate the armor slowly, "disappeared approximately 50,000 years before any of our species achieved spaceflight. Their technology remains largely beyond our comprehension. This armor, for instance, can withstand direct hits from plasma weapons that would vaporize modern battleship hulls." A Thalian cadet, her blue skin darkening with confusion, raised a gelatinous pseudopod. "Instructor, how is such protection possible?" "The armor generates a quantum-locked energy field," Velthar explained, clearly pleased by the question. "It exists in a state of perpetual probability flux, redistributing kinetic and thermal energy across 11 dimensions. Observe the internal structure." The hologram shifted, revealing the armor's interior. Susan tilted her head, and Evan noticed her lips moving silently. He'd known her long enough to recognize that expression. She was counting something. "The environmental systems are equally remarkable." Velthar gestured at the glowing conduits running through the armor's framework. "Self-contained atmosphere generation, waste recycling, and temperature regulation that could sustain the wearer indefinitely in any environment, from absolute zero to stellar coronas." "Mine had better ventilation," Susan muttered, barely audible. Evan's stylus clattered onto his desk. Every sensory organ in the room swiveled toward Susan. "Excuse me. Cadet Chen?" Velthar's crystalline features somehow managed to convey both confusion and irritation. "Did you say something?" Susan looked up, seemingly surprised, to find herself the center of attention. "Oh, sorry. I was just thinking out loud. About ventilation?" Velthar's tone suggested he found this deeply inappropriate during a discussion of reality-defying ancient technology. "Well, yeah," Susan shrugged. "It's impressive and all. But that internal conduit configuration would create heat pockets along the wearer's spine and behind the knees. Uncomfortable during extended operations. My old Mark 7 had a better circulation design. The silence that followed was absolute. A Xyrillian in the front row, whose translator struggled with the concept, finally spoke. "Your Mark 7 powered armor," Susan clarified, as if this explained everything. "Standard issue for colonial marines. Did 2 tours in the Arcturus pacification wearing one. Architected human technological superiority reveal within alien perspective narrative. I need to develop this more carefully. The HFY element is that humans have actually been using similar or even superior technology that they developed independently, while the rest of the galaxy treats precursor tech as incomprehensible ancient artifacts. I should continue building the tension and reveal more about human technology shocking the aliens." Velthar's prismatic skin flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in Corinthians. "Cadet Chen, are you claiming that humans possess armor comparable to precursor technology?" "Not comparable," Evan interjected quietly, unable to help himself. "The Mark 7 is actually several generations old now. We're up to Mark X7 in active deployment." Every being in the room turned to stare at him. "Explain," Velthar demanded, his composure cracking. "Now." Susan and Evan exchanged glances. "Look, It's not that complicated, Susan began. Humans have been using powered armor for about 300 years. Started as simple exoskeletons for heavy lifting, evolved into combat systems. By the time we made first contact with the Coalition, we'd already been through 7 major design iterations. She stood and approached the hologram, pointing at various components. See this energy distribution network? We solved that problem with layered graphene titanium composite plating and electromagnetic force dispersion. No quantum manipulation needed. The environmental system? Standard regenerative life support. We've been using similar setups in deep space mining suits since before we had FTL. Also, we've been using phasing Menor sensitive. Impossible, breathed a Vexnar cadet, their feathers puffing in distress. The Precursors were millions of years ahead of current Coalition technology. Ahead of Coalition technology, Evan agreed. But humans developed independently, outside Coalition space. Different problems, different solutions. Velthar's hand trembled as he pulled up his teaching notes. The quantum-locked probability flux field. Unnecessary, Susan interrupted gently. Over-engineered, actually. The Precursors were probably dealing with weapons we haven't even conceptualized yet, so they needed that kind of exotic defense. Our armor just has to stop bullets, plasma bolts, and explosions. Conventional materials and energy shields handle that fine. The temperature regulation across extreme environments, variable emissivity coating, and phase change cooling. Evan supplied. We developed it for volcanic mining operations on Mercury. Velthar seemed to deflate. The indefinite operation capability. Fusion microcell, Susan said apologetically. 20-year operational lifespan. Before refueling. Standard in anything from cargo haulers to combat armor. The instructor was silent for a long moment, staring at the hologram of the Precursor armor that his entire career had been built around studying. Finally, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The ventilation issue you mentioned? Susan winced. Right. Sorry. Didn't mean to criticize. It's just, your conduits create a parallel flow pattern. We learned the hard way that cross-flow with thermal sensors and dynamic vent adjustment prevents hotspots. Made the Mark 7 way more comfortable for 18-hour operations. Before that fix, we had the same problem you're showing here. A Dralith cadet raised a tentacle shakily. Cadet Chen. How many humans are equipped with this armor? Oh, just the military, Susan said dismissively. Maybe 2 million active suits across the Colonial Defense Force? Plus reserves and peacekeeping units? 2 million. Velthar repeated faintly. Give or take, Evan added helpfully. That's not counting civilian, industrial exoskeletons or the atmospheric combat variants. The room erupted in shocked chittering, warbling, and various sounds of alien dismay. Velthar stood motionless for several seconds before speaking again. Class dismissed. I need to revise my lecture notes. Cadets Chen and Rodriguez, please report to the dean's office immediately. As they gathered their belongings, Susan leaned toward Evan. Did I say something wrong? Probably just saved the Coalition a few thousand years of research and development, Evan murmured back. I think they're going to want to have a very long conversation with human military procurement. Walking out, they could hear Velthar muttering to himself. Better ventilation. They have better ventilation. Behind them, 200 cadets began frantically updating their thesis proposals.